I am New York.
Я сам New York.
I am New York.
Yo soy Nueva York.
Sono New York.
Je suis New York.
Welcome to DiverseCITY, where we explore New York's eclectic enclaves, one neighborhood at a time. I'm Zyphus LeBron. We're going to do something a little different on this episode. Instead of looking at a specific neighborhood, we're going to highlight the city's waterfront. This month, we're here along the East River in Domino Park in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. The park is one of the many projects dotting the city's coastline at a time when New York's estimated 520 miles of virtually unused linear waterfront is being touted as the next great development frontier. A recent report from the real estate website Curb New York found that the majority of the mega projects changing the city are found near or along the coastline. This development is not happening in a vacuum. It's in part the result of advocacy groups like the Waterfront Alliance, pushing for river access, as well as a plan called Vision 2020 that was hatched under Mayor Michael Bloomberg. The plan consisted of more than 500 prospective projects that would do everything from increasing water touch points for kayakers and canoeists to creating protections against rising sea levels. In theory, these developments are supposed to usher in a new age of prosperity in their neighborhoods. However, the reality is a little more nuanced. On this episode, Not Forgotten, high hopes for a mall development on Staten Island's North Shore, balanced against concerns over who gets to share in the spoils. Industrial strength, the billion-dollar industry city, corporate friend or foe. And underwater, a plan to protect the city against rising sea levels churns dissent in the nearby community. Those stories and more coming up as we explore New York City's waterfront. One of the major developments that's been built along the city's waterfront in the last few years is Empire Outlets, a discount mall on Staten Island. The complex is being advertised as an economic lifeline for the island's less affluent North Shore. Gary Pierre filed this report on how St. George residents are hoping for an economic spillover into their community.
Empire Outlets, a sprawling 350,000 square foot shopping center, is set to open in the spring of 2019. The mall is part of a $1.6 billion investment along the Staten Island waterfront in the St. George section. There are plans for hotels, parking garages, and other attractions. Residents, business owners, and borough officials hope the project will transform the area from a transient outpost to a hub of activity. Their goal is to entice tourists and maybe even more New Yorkers to take the 20-minute ferry ride from Manhattan.
So right now we see about 1 to 2 million visitors riding the ferry each year. We anticipate that once the outlets open, that number will jump to 6 to 7 million tourists a year. And our hope is that they will be spending money and enjoying not only the Empire Outlets, but everything else that Staten Island has to offer.
Staten Island is less than half hour by boat from Manhattan, but is often viewed as a world away. The story of Staten Island could be called a tale of two boroughs because of the disparity between the affluent South Shore, traditionally white, ethnic, and Republican, and the North Shore, working class and more diverse. According to a recent 96-page report by a nonprofit that advocates for children, the North lags behind the South in crucial indicators like employment opportunities, education, and housing.
I welcome the development, because, Staten Island, they say, is the forgotten borough, but the North Shore is the forgotten community because historically it has not benefited from the development that the rest of the island has enjoyed. It's the most diverse segment of Staten Island. It's also been the segment that's been mostly underfunded and underserved. So there's a lot of social service organizations that are in the downtown area of Staten Island.
Born and raised on Staten Island, Bobby DG is a community activist, entrepreneur, and most recently, an unsuccessful candidate for the 61st Assembly District.
Now what this new development boom means for the North Shore is this. If done right, because it's still in the process, more opportunities for immigrant communities, for minorities, the middle class, to grow the middle class, right? Where people can work and live and play in the community. That is key. So it means connecting underserved communities to job opportunities.
That's already happening, DG says. Under Empire Outlets, there are training programs for residents to get jobs at the new businesses and retail outlets.
Of course, we want development in the community, but we don't want development that displaces the community. For instance, there's small business owners, mom and pop shops, right? If there isn't sort of a very intentional and comprehensive, and cohesive plan to ensure that it's not developed in a way where it hurts or it hyper-gentrifies the community, then it's a good thing.
For Sammartino, the development means something more.
So I think with new development and new people coming in, there's always some elements of fear. And I think that North Shore residents are, I think they're equal parts looking forward to welcoming a new population into the new economic development, and a little apprehensive about it. I think that we have a wonderful, diverse mix of people here on the North Shore. To be honest, I think that this new development will actually help us to see maybe a little bit more diversity throughout the entire borough. And that's something that's really exciting and something we should celebrate.
For Diverse City, I'm Gary Pierre.
Another significant development along the water is in Brooklyn. Industry City is the 6 billion square foot complex at the center of a firestorm of debate raging over Sunset Park's future. On the one hand, there's the developer, Jamestown Properties, that's touting their $1 billion re-envisioning of the dingy manufacturing warehouses into pristine high-end facilities as innovation the area needs. On the other are longtime residents who are unhappy with how their new neighbors are causing their rents to spike and displacing longtime businesses.
One word comes to mind when walking through Industry City: sprawling. The complex is home to eateries, a high-end chocolate store. The Brooklyn Nets even have a training facility and their corporate office on these grounds. And that's just the tip of the proverbial iceberg. Industry City is so large that there are maps like these along walls throughout the compound that show the 10 buildings that stretch along 2nd and 3rd Avenues between 32nd and 37th Streets. All this is only part of a $1 billion rezoning and redevelopment proposal for the waterfront facility. Back in 1895, Industry City was a state-of-the-art warehousing and distribution center, but it became virtually derelict in the early 2000s. Now, developers Jamestown Belvedere Capital and Angelo Gordon and Company have a plan to use this space to create more than 20,000 jobs citywide. Industry City's CEO, Andrew Kimball, appeared on CUNY TV's Stoller Report in 2014 to speak about plans for retail stores during the initial stages of the rebuilding process.
The primary focus on the retail initially is retail that is an amenity for the businesses moving in there. So, you mentioned the BQE, and that has been the natural dividing line between the residential side of Sunset Park and the working waterfront. We need to create places that people can come get something to eat, for instance, in these buildings. So as we go for 2,400 employees where we were last August to 3,600 today to 15,000 where we hope to be in another 8 years, there need to be interesting places for people to go eat.
Despite that, all is not well on the waterfront.
These industrial parts of the communities, areas where you've had a large walk-to-work community working at jobs that pay really well, have been turned into destination locations for the privileged.
Elizabeth Yampier is the head of UPROSE, an environmental justice group that's heading a coalition of community organizations and churches that say that Industry City is contributing to the gentrification taking place in the neighborhood.
They basically tell our community that this is a place where they can work. And what they don't tell them is that they might be able to get a job there, but they won't be able to afford to live here anymore. And what they do, which is dishonest is they make it seem as though displacement and gentrification is happening everywhere, that they can't control that when they are really the folks that are generating that displacement, both primary and secondary in Sunset Park.
According to NYU's Furman Center for Real Estate and Urban Policy, rents in Sunset Park went up nearly 25% between 1990 and 2014. Those rent hikes forced out people like Ting Ting Fu and her family. Fu works with Yam here at Uprose and is part of the community alliance called POWER, Protect Our Working Waterfront Alliance. She says the neighborhood is nothing like what she remembers.
I grew up here, and back then, you know, we really didn't need a block party permit for a block party. We just sort of like shut shit down, open the fire. We didn't need the fire trucks to come in to open the fire hydrant. We just did it on our own, and block parties would just happen. But now it's so hard to even organize a block party because people, they don't want the loud music. They don't want kids running up and down the blocks. They don't want barbecue in the front. And so that's sort of like one of the main things that I see changing, and it's really sad.
Dr. Lillian Polo-McKenna also grew up in Sunset Park and admits that things have changed since she moved away. She heads Opportunities for a Better Tomorrow, a nonprofit that provides job training and placement, as well as mentorship for entrepreneurs from poor communities. She says that Industry City is making strides to be a good corporate neighbor. They've partnered with OBT and City Tech to create the Innovation Lab. The lab's mandate, in part, is to train locals and place them in jobs in the facility.
I think the Innovation Lab for us reflects a commitment from a variety of different parties. So you have a nonprofit, you have higher ed, CUNY, you have a private entity, Industry City, which of course they have their own interests, but they've demonstrated a significant commitment to the work that's happening here, sort of roll their sleeves up, let's sit at the table, let's figure out what this can look like. And that's refreshing.
But Yampier says what they're doing isn't enough, despite Industry City's claims that they've already created more than 8,000 jobs since 2013.
We don't know what those numbers are. We don't know how many real jobs. We don't know whether those are union jobs. We don't know whether those are jobs that would provide growth for people in our community, or whether they're entry-level jobs where people are just cleaning up and serving.
Polo-McKenna says that the problem is more nuanced than that.
So in Sunset Park, 42% of adults don't have a high school diploma. It's a challenge that we have to overcome. And so whether it's through Opportunities for a Better Tomorrow or any of the other education and workforce partners in the community, it's really getting people on track to both get the credentials that they need, but also build the skills that are necessary to access the jobs that are here right now, but also certainly the jobs that will come.
Still, Yampier is not certain of Industry City's willingness to be a good corporate citizen. She says that the developers have deep pockets and have gone on a charm offensive in order to get everything that they've wanted.
They have been working really hard to do an end run around us, dropping money all over Sunset Park, giving money to churches, to community organizations, doing what has always been done to us, giving out trinkets so they could take away a community soul.
Now that a lot of the refurbishing has taken place, developers are moving forward with their rezoning efforts that could see vertical development of the facility. Yampier and her coalition say they're going to continue educating members of the community for the fight that lies ahead as they await word on this rezoning.
This is a David and Goliath fight, and we know that. But just because it is doesn't mean that we're not going to fight. We have to. If we were to give up every time there's a big fight in front of us, where would we be as a people? We wouldn't even be talking to each other right now. We wouldn't exist.
Improved access to the waterfront in the South Bronx is a major impetus behind the drive to tear down the Sheridan Expressway. For more than 20 years, health advocates and residents of Hunts Point have been pushing for officials to demolish the short road that links to the interstate highway system because of its negative impact on the area. They thought they were almost there until Governor Andrew Cuomo unveiled a plan that falls short of their demands. Gary Pierre went to Hunts Point and filed this report.
We have in this community 1 in 3 young people who suffer from asthma. And that's a very alarming statistic for us and one that we really want to try to alleviate.
Angela Tovar is Director of Development at The Point, a community development group based in the South Bronx. They've been part of the fight to refurbish the Sheraton Expressway. She says that in addition to the health hazards, the route is just plain dangerous and nearly impossible to cross.
In order for you to access the waterfront, you have to cross at certain places, but you can't just cross the street just from where you're at. So say, for example, if you're at the local high school that's right parallel to the Sheridan, kids don't have a walkway directly to all of the new parks that have just recently come online within the last 10 years within the neighborhood.
Even after more than 20 years of activism, the highway that Robert Moses built remains not only an eyesore, but a sore point for residents and activists.
We see clearly that there's an entry in traffic, that would in effect have a greater impact on pedestrian safety and fatalities. That particular intersection where Hunts Point is and you have where the Brooklyn interchange, we've had a lot of more accidents and mortalities. And so the issue around traffic easement and pedestrian safety has been a priority.
Community activists like Tovar and Clemente of the nonprofit Nos Cuidamos feel that their views and concerns are not being taken seriously.
It's about time they start paying attention to our community, and it's about time they start investing in ways that we could really improve the current land use and make it beneficial for the community.
Completed in 1963, the road is about 1.25 miles long and runs north parallel to the Bronx River from Hunts Point to East Tremont. The route was built as an alternative to the Bronx River Parkway that would allow commercial vehicles that were otherwise banned from parkways in New York. However, what it became was a project that displaced thousands while it was being built and created a health crisis and safety issue that still exists today.
The environmental impacts of just truck traffic and particulate matter in the air particles that people are consuming and that they're breathing. You know, we have one of the highest rates of asthma here in the local community, and so that's always an issue for us as well.
The community has arrived at a general set of proposals and recommendations that can take place there. Unfortunately, now that there's political will and political investment, it's not matching what the long-term analysis has taken place.
Clemente is referring to a recent state plan proposed by Governor Andrew Cuomo, a $1.8 billion retransformation of the Sheridan Expressway. The boulevard will have a number of pedestrian and cyclist lanes. The reconfigured roadway will be known as New York State Route 895, and it will be maintained by State Department of Transportation officials when work is completed in a few years.
This is one of the most industrialized areas of the entire city.
As editor of the Hunts Point Express, Joe Hirsch has followed this story for years and says that the plan as it stands now will only shift the problem and not solve it.
The advocates say that as long as the Sheridan remains standing, that is just an enormous block of space that is not going to be used by the public, by the community for waterfront access, but instead is going to be used by trucks. And as a result, that contributes to some of the city's worst asthma problems because of the trucking fleets that the Sheridan itself serves.
That will make it
Adam Green runs Rocking the Boat, a youth empowerment organization that teaches life skills through boat building. The state's proposal will shift the bulk of the traffic near him.
It's really kind of a big bait and switch on the community. What the community thought they'd won last year when this came down was a huge improvement of the Sheraton Expressway. Would be decommissioned, turned into a boulevard. People would have easy access to the river. It wouldn't be this barrier between the river and the community. The river is this amazing asset. It's this wealth of opportunity and resources for the community that until quite recently the community never had any awareness or access to at all.
But for the foreseeable future, this option is off the drawing board. Construction on the state's plan started last month. For DiverseCITY, I'm Gary Pierre.
Finally, there's a grassroots movement afoot to raise awareness about and possibly stop a city plan that could bury the East River Park under nearly 10 feet of dirt. The plan is part of something called the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project. It's supposed to be the city's answer to the imminent threat of another Hurricane Sandy. However, critics and residents say the plan lacks vision and may do more harm than good.
It's quiet today in the East River Park. The joggers and daydreamers go about as usual, past subtle reminders that this 57.5-acre stretch of land that's become part of their everyday is about to change forever.
I think there was really a betrayal of the community, and I think that is really one of the things that is hard to swallow, because this new plan is really it was just sort of, it feels like they want to just shove it down our throat.
Christina Datz-Romero is a Lower East Side resident and runs the Lower East Side Ecology Center. The center does everything from composting to running corporate team building programs in the park. The new plan she's referring to is a variation on something called the Big U. It was developed by the city's Department of Design and Construction and Rebuild by Design. The Department of Housing and Urban Development created Rebuild by Design in the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. It was part of the federal government's effort to help the region deal with climate change. Amy Chester runs the nonprofit.
The Big U was a vision from one of our design teams led by the Big team, and the idea was to create multi-purpose infrastructure that would run around the U of Manhattan, essentially the floodplain, that could be tailor designed for the communities that were next to it.
In the case of this community, it meant that a large structure would have been created alongside the FDR to make the park, and hence the neighborhood, less susceptible to the kind of flooding they saw during Hurricane Sandy. But the DDC changed the original $760 million plan, in which the community had input, at the 11th hour.
The city came back with a new plan in September at a cost of an additional $700 million that will now raise the entire East River Park 8 to 10 feet. So the entire park now becomes the flood protection instead of just one area next to the FDR Drive.
The Department of Design and Construction would not appear on camera to explain their decision about the project that will now cost $1.45 billion, but answered our inquiries via email. When asked why they decided to scrap the original plan, the response, in part, was as follows. The main reason why the plan was changed to the current Raise the Park design was construction feasibility, the ability to actually build the project on time. The original plan called for working adjacent to the FDR Drive for 4 years. This means work could only take place overnight, and each night, time would have to be used closing one lane on the highway and then reopening it in the early morning. This would only leave several hours each night to do that actual work, and no flexibility at all to work longer hours if necessary to complete the project on time. However, that reasoning is not holding water with Datz-Romero and other residents and activists.
As I said, when they renovated this part here, it took them 10 years, right? The city doesn't have a good track record in terms of delivering projects like that on time or on budget, for that matter. So I have absolutely no illusions about this project is at least 5 years, if not longer.
But that's the least of the problems. Sandy was a wake-up call for New York, much as Katrina was to Louisiana and the rest of the country. Chester says that this is just a flashpoint in a bigger conversation about how cities like New York can be better prepared for the inevitable flooding that will come because of climate change.
In many cities around the world, we're building floodable parks as a way of absorbing some of the water. But in our city, we're not yet doing that in some of the Parks Department land. They are instead choosing to keep the water out. And I think a real reason is because of the maintenance issue. The Parks Department is not equipped, and they don't have a big enough budget to maintain these parks. So we need to start thinking about how we can create flood infrastructure that's also parks and give Parks Department both the responsibility and the budget to actually maintain it.
Despite the criticism, the DDC says, quote, the new plan addresses the community's need for storm protection, providing it one hurricane season sooner than the original plan would have.
In the meantime, Romero and other advocates are suggesting that a deck be built over the FDR that would extend from Montgomery Street in the south all the way to 25th Street in the north, as a means of creating flood protection for the area, as well as new park space that can be visited by nearby residents.
She says that it's a matter of having the political will to get this done.
Obviously, there needs to be a lot of planning to really accommodate for stuff, but I think the time is right to really think about not timid steps, but to be a little bit more bold about what it really, why are we in this mess, right? We can't engineer ourselves out of climate change. So, what can we really do to, have less impacts and, and build something that makes sense?
Construction on the park is slated to begin by 2020. Before that, there will be a public hearing on the matter at the end of July.
That's our look at some of the stories happening along the waterfront. Join us next month when we'll take a look at Governor's Island. Till then, step outside and enjoy our diverse city.